Hi, welcome. I'm Shira Ashendorf, and I teach at Yeshivat Noam in Paramus, New Jersey. Um, okay, so I actually, can you click forward? Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. I became a teacher in 1995 when I got my master's degree, and I also got a degree in Judaic Studies, master's in Judaic Studies and in education. When I started teaching, I was teaching Judaic Studies, and I abandoned my teaching of Judaic Studies. I found it very difficult because there were no standards, and I didn't know where to go, and I didn't know how to meet goals and what goals I was supposed to meet. I wasn't clear, and I wasn't in agreement with a lot of the curriculum, and I felt that it was very broad and that there were too many needs that weren't being met. So it just made me uncomfortable. And I went back and I took a break from teaching, had my kids, and did more development, and now I'm teaching general studies, and I am teaching in the 4th grade. I teach 4th grade boys, and I have 3 kids. That's me in a nutshell. So why are you in this session? So here's a little snapshot of what I hope to give to you. If you're here, you're excited to hear about how some of these very reluctant readers who come into the classroom all of a sudden are leaving 4th grade excited about what they're going to read over the summer and to come back to me and say, guess what I read. If you're here, you're excited and interested to hear about how kids can get motivated about something that they really had no interest in. And if you're here, you're amazed when some of your students who you couldn't get to do anything without handing a candy to are intrinsically motivated and excited about their own successes and couldn't really care about whether you're excited for them because they're excited for themselves. And if you're here, you understand what I mean, or you will by the end of this session understand what I mean when I say I changed my title from teacher to facilitator of learning. And why bother? I recently, after I got involved in BetterLesson, I've been very passionate about my process at BetterLesson. And I came across an article and saw that Professor Carly Robinson from Harvard explained that decades of psychological research prove that providing students with choice leads to increased autonomy, increased motivation, and increased performance and better performance. It's just the research is there. But too much choice, obviously, is not always better. They become overwhelmed, and we have to know how to do it and how to do it right and what to do. So I just wanted to put the little research out there. Start modestly. This is my coach, Sean. And here's what happened. I started in the beginning, and I was very overwhelmed. I didn't know how to get these kids to enjoy reading. I had a whole bunch of boys who came into the classroom with these big Harry Potter books, and all they wanted to do was read Harry Potter. 3/4 of the boys who were reading Harry Potter had no idea what was going on in the book and couldn't give me a quick summary of Harry Potter. But they were really excited because it's 4th grade and everyone reads Harry Potter and they're going to read it like everyone else. And the rest of the kids just said, reading stinks and it's boring and I can't do it. I'm not going to do it, and so can we do something else? And so I was tasked by my principal to say, homework every night is 20 minutes of reading. And figure it out, find a book, and do it. That wasn't going to fly, and they weren't going to sit and read. And if they did, and during the classroom time of sitting and reading for 20 minutes, they sat with a book on their lap and they stared at words for 20 minutes. You can say words for 20 minutes. That doesn't mean that you're understanding or reading or enjoying reading, and some of them were actually crying. And so I said, Sean, none of this is working. I'm trying, I'm giving them ideas, I'm getting excited about reading, I'm letting them pick their own book. You don't like the book, abandon the book. We're picking your genre, what genre do you like, whatever. So Sean actually said, hey, what would happen if you had the kids set their own goals? Stop telling them what they needed to do and what. How about if you said to them, okay, we're reading, what do you want to do in reading? And it was like a game changer, like the world opened up for me. And I basically said, it's that simple, really? And we got notebooks. And I set up a whole system of appointments. They had to make appointments, like you make an appointment at the doctor's office. Set up your appointment with me, sign up for an appointment, and meet with me. You're going to set a goal. Whatever the goal is, read one page. I don't know, whatever it is, whatever works for you, your book, your goal. And then you're going to meet with me the next day and you're going to tell me, did you meet your goal? It's your goal. Whatever happens. And the whole classroom atmosphere changed. They were meeting their goals because they were their goals. They were enjoying what they were reading because they were picking their books. And they were understanding what they were reading because they were biting off what they could chew. Sometimes it was a little bit too little, and sometimes it was the opposite. I'm going to read 47 pages tonight, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you all about it. And I was like, okay. And then they would come back, well, I had a basketball game last night, so I didn't read at all. And I would say, okay, let's assess that. Did that work? How can we do better tonight? What do you want to do? And it was a learning curve for both of us. And they had to keep their notebooks, and they had to write, and everything had to start with I. I am going to try to read this. I'm going to try to summarize in one sentence what happened. And I always said, summarize it in one sentence. Please do not repeat to me exactly what happened in what you read. One sentence about what happened in the passage that you read, the page that you read, the chapter that you read, whatever it is. I want one sentence, the most important thing that happened, because I didn't want it to become something that was too difficult to do. It's reading, it's not writing. I want one sentence. And for the ones who really don't like writing and they couldn't do it, draw me a picture. Somehow come in tomorrow and show me what happened in your reading of last night, whatever amount you read. Things began to happen in the classroom that were really exciting. The kids came in and said, do we have independent reading today? I really got to get back to what's going on in my book. And I just started to smile and get so excited. And I had to start shopping for books because I was running out of books. And they were fighting over books. And it was really, I had this going on and this going on, and it was awesome. And they started to, I was able to then push them to think deeper about the meanings of books, because finally, instead of just being able to tell me that one sentence summary, I was able to say, really, what might have happened if he didn't go out the door that morning? And then he would say, oh, I don't know. And I would just be like, And they would walk away, and like I would see those wheels turning. And all of a sudden, they're thinking deeper about the meanings of the books. And stuff really started happening. And then I failed, because then it was time for map testing. And they did not make growth for the middle of the year map testing. And I cried a lot. And it was time for my meeting with Sean, and he popped up on my Zoom meeting, and he said, okay, what's going on? And I went, and he said, what's happening? I said, map testing. He said, oh my gosh, you really can't do this to yourself. So I took it very personally, and I took it very hard. My kids were not making growth in reading. They didn't go backwards, but they weren't growing, and everyone in my school is looking at the numbers of growth and I was panicked that this was going to be the biggest failure. I did this whole new thing, and I was so proud, but it's okay. Map testing is a small piece of a very large picture. And we realized at the end of the year that the kids hate map testing. And reading those very long, very arduous, very wordy passages is horrible and boring. And I actually am going to be taking a map test next week because I told my principal that I'm no longer giving map testing if I don't get to take it and see what it feels like, because that's not fair. And so until I sit through it and know what it's like and understand that how it self-regulates and it gets more difficult and less difficult and how it all works, I can't really know how it is to sit in that chair, because I see that they click without reading. And I know it's a wonderful test and it's great, but you know what? I'm not going to grade myself on it anymore, because in the end, thank you, they really grew. They grew in mature, because this was my Are You For Real, because I really went crazy. They matured. Their F&P levels, which I don't know if any of you do that in your schools, but their level for their Lexile levels and their F&P levels went through the roof. They were able to talk about books. When we did 1 million read-alouds, because that's all they wanted to do, was read aloud, read aloud. Like, could we do more books? Could we talk about reading? Could we? And so we were able to model through the read aloud what it is to read a book. And so I sat in the front of the classroom and they sat around me and we read books together. And reading books together, just like as a parent you would read to your child, as a teacher to read with your class, is such a gift to have the time to do that. And then to stop after a chapter and just look and say, oh, what just happened? And then they're like, I mean, the kids went crazy with all these books that we read, and then they wanted to read the next in that series, or they wanted to, I would stop on a cliffhanger every time, and I would hear, they would scream, no, you know, and it just the love of reading in the classroom just got bigger and bigger and bigger. I couldn't wait to hand them off to 5th grade, almost like, don't wreck this, you know, like, this is my precious gift to you. Please keep it going. And just a quick story. I had this student with severe social anxiety and a pretty bad anger management problem in my class. He did the work that was agreeable to him and didn't do the work that he didn't feel like doing. And if you said to him, this was wrong, you know, you got this answer wrong, whatever, he'd tear up his paper and throw it out and storm out, and whatever, something would happen. And, you know, up until this point, teachers kind of stayed out of his way and just tried to make sure that he stayed even keel. So at the beginning of the year, I went over to him and I said, I just want to let you know, because I was saying hello to all the students in the beginning of the year and building my relationships with them. I just want to let you know that this year is going to be a lot about choice. So if something's not working for you, or if there's an assignment that you don't like, or that you feel just isn't fun, come over to me. Tell me this is not something I feel like doing, or this is not something I can do. And give me an alternative that you think you would like to do instead, and let's see if we can work something out. Because I'm on your side. I'm here to work with you. So let's figure it out. It's not okay to ever feel like you're being bossed around. Just come over and say, this is, I don't know if I can work like this, let's work it out. he's an entirely different kid. He had an amazing year. He didn't really ever have to come over and say, I'm not doing this. He did sort of sit and shut down quietly, and I would go over and say, what's up? And he kind of expressed in his way that this wasn't working, and I said, well, would you like to do it a different way, or would you like to use technology instead, or whatever? And he would say yes, and sure, okay, then let's make that work for you. He produced magnificent work, learned a ton, and he was one of them that came in reading Harry Potter books and didn't know what was flying. By the end of the year was reading Harry Potter #1, was totally ready for it, and it really showed that because he took ownership and was able to express himself in his way, that stuff wasn't working for him, and we were able to work with him to adjust and make it individualized for who he was as a person. He became a lot, he was delicious by the end of the year, just wonderful. And there were no issues and no acting out because he just felt like, okay, you're on my side. We'll make this work. This is going to be okay. And it just goes to show you that when you respect your students and when you show them that you can change things around and you're not stuck that this is how it has to be, a whole world can open up to them. And they can become, they just relax. They don't feel like, you know, these people are these bosses and everything has to be like that. And, you know, when I first started teaching 100 years ago, I was the boss and this is what you had to do and these were the papers and everybody had to complete it the same way and this is what you did. That just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Kids are different. Education is different and we have to be different. So, for example, the book report. I don't do that. So what do? How do we know kids have read books? And what do we? Well, we do lots and lots and lots of things. One thing and these are a lot of ideas from the BetterLesson. Choice boards. So I'll give them like a very cool choice board. It looks kind of like bingo. Pick 3 things and make a row of things across. One would be make an acrostic with your character, the main character's name, and his character traits or her character traits. Then fill in that block. You know, pick things. Jigsaws, which is where you do something about your book, you do something about your book, you do something about your book, and now mix the classroom up together and everybody shares. Literature circles were amazing this year. Literature circles, we were basically book club. Each group read a different book, and they came back once a week to meet in their groups, and everyone had a task and discussed, and there was the vocab victor and the summarizer, and they loved literature circles. They created WhatsApp chats on their, they don't have phones yet, but they have iPods, so they can have WhatsApp. And they were, did you get to page 37? Oh my gosh, it was the cutest thing. I wish they would include me, but they thought that was very nerdy, so they weren't putting me on it. I was like, come on, I want to be on it, because I read all the books that were in all the, and I was like, and I said, just tell me what you were talking about, but no, I'm very nerdy. They can't put me on there. They were so cute, and that we added an additional literature circle for the end of the year, when normally it sort of slows down and it's kind of, there's not so much to do. We were like, let's put a literature circle in, and they were so happy to have one that we did a fantasy literature circle for the fantasy unit because they had so much fun with them. Character sketching, where the kids did raps about their characters for their books. And they didn't have to do a rap. They could do a rap, they could do a song, they could do a Google Slides. Whatever you wanted to do, sketch your character, you could make a poster. Anything to show us that you love your main character of your book. Or hate them, whatever. It didn't matter. Podcasting. I had a student who had a stutter, and he really, really wanted to work on his stutter. So, but he had trouble speaking in front of everybody, so he podcasted because he could do it in the privacy of his own home and work on his speech without feeling embarrassed. So he created a podcast and a website. It was fabulous. And he is an amazing writer and an amazing reader, but he couldn't publicly speak. The podcast was fantastic for him. Hand Up, Pair Up is, instead of talk and turn, which we all use and it's great and it works, Hand Up, Pair Up is a way in 4th grade where kids who may not be so friendly with other kids was everybody stand up, hand up, and walk across the room and pair up with someone across the room. And then, because I have all boys, so there was never an issue with like touching a girl or cooties or any of that stuff. It worked very nicely with in that, and then they had to pair up with someone they had not yet paired up with, and they got to know each other. Friday Fishbowl is a great way to end the week where everybody, you can look it up on BetterLesson. I didn't link it, sorry. And you stand in 2 concentric circles and discuss things. Text to self connections, text to text connections, text to life connections. And those are other ways to talk about your book, and all these different ways that we talk about our books without writing a book report, coloring a cover, and stapling it in the corner. And then this is me. First of all, any questions? Yes.
I guess, sure. So one, it seems like there's sort of like 2 aspects to it. One is like the reading that they're doing on their own time, and then the reading that's like required, I guess, for school. So
those are the same.
They are the same.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we have them read the same. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess how do you challenge, or like how do you deal with the challenge of pacing? So you have kids that are all going to read at different speeds, which is fine. Do you have like a certain number of books that they need to read by the end of the year? Or it's like whatever you get done is whatever you get done, as long as you can demonstrate the understanding of your reading.
100%.
So then how would in that case, how would a literature circle work? Do you pair them by like?
Pair them by level. They don't know that they're being paired by level, but they are paired by level. Okay. Yeah, the books, the literature circles are by genre, because we learn by genre. The year goes by genre. My whole year is basically cross-curricular, so it's very much cross-curricular. So like when we're learning about the South, in social studies, I'm doing civil rights, and I'm doing like there's a lot, and so then I'm doing historical fiction, and I'm doing like there's a lot of cross-curricular stuff. So I pair my reading with that and my read-alouds with that and everything. So
they have like a selection within sort of.
So that's what's out in the classroom library, and they choose from that. They know to choose a just right book. Sometimes they choose a little above their level. Sometimes they choose a little below their level. If they've chosen below their level, they'll get through it quickly. If they've chosen above their level, then either they're struggling and they'll say, this is a little difficult. They'll notice that when we have our meetings. And I'll say, okay, do you want to work through it, or would you like to try and choose something else? So, yeah.
First of all, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Question, you mentioned Lexile numbers. Like, we're starting map testing this year, and our English teachers are very nervous about it because they do a lot of these types of activities, and they're worried about how it's going to translate. What advice would you have?
My advice really is don't let the data overwhelm you and take everything very slowly. First of all, let the kids guide you and get an idea of where they feel comfortable reading. Then you'll kind of be able to see, based on where they're comfortable reading, where they fall. And the data is less important in the long run than everyone really makes it out to be. I mean, you have to know where they fall because they have to be growing, but growth is more important than actually the number.
But you do see growth with this type of program.
Yes,
forget about where they started, but you definitely saw
Yes, there was growth. From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, yes. There was that like major slump in the middle of the year when I was freaking out. But the map testing is very good, and it's also bad. I mean, it's good because it does what it needs to do, but some of the kids really just don't like taking it. Take the test. I'm going to be taking the test next week because I need to see what it looks like. I can't tell you what it looks like because I haven't taken it yet, but that's why I'm taking it.
But by the end of the year, you were able to show an administrator there was growth.
There was beautiful growth. But then also it shows it to you on a nice grid. So you're able to see like high achievement, low growth, low achievement, low growth, and then you really need to figure out why.
Was your administration, and more than that, the parents okay with the math testing results, or did you get?
We called anyone that was really in that low achievement, low growth, and said, all right, you know, heads up, we have this situation, and this is what we're seeing. Please be aware that it's math testing. It's one piece of a bigger picture. In one instance, I said, it's one piece of a bigger picture, and it's a very good indicator of a situation that we need to deal with. In most of my other students, I said, it's one piece of a bigger picture, and I'm not worried.
And the parents just accepted that?
Yeah, I mean, there's one or two parents that were like, this, you know, why, what's happening? You know, you always have, but most of the parents were like, we trust you. If you're not worried, we're not worried. They were in the one kid who I had to say, this is a perfect indication of what's going on in the classroom, and we need to buckle down on him, and I need your help. They were like, you are right. He's very, very difficult, and what are we going to do? And I gave them strategies, and I said, and you need to do this over the summer, or we're going to have a problem. And they are hopefully implementing it over the summer. So, sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Let me just take.
Go back.
Okay, sorry.
I'm coming from a public school world into a private school world, and I hear people's anxiety about testing. And I think it's just something that should be understood universally, and I think you did a really great job sharing it, is it's not about the testing data point, it's about your ongoing data. So you're using FNP. FNP is an expensive kit, not all schools have access to FNP, but there's lots of things that are free or easy to do. Even your word reading lessons, students' ability to break apart syllables and answer questions from a movie clip is a great way to test comprehension that's less taxing for our kids. So if we think of those data points and we can track growth in those data points, we can relieve parent and administrator anxiety of the big name tests because we have our little points. I'm coming from special ed in the public school, so I understand the stress of testing and the big data points, but if we are consistently tracking our everyday data points, then we can relieve other people's
Were
anxiety.
very helpful for, I saved a lot of the kids' notebooks because it was so helpful to see how they started off at the very beginning of, my goal is to read 3 pages tonight and to give Mrs. A a 1-sentence summary. And then the end was like, my goal is to finish Harry Potter by the end of this week. And it's an amazing, that to me is like, how could you deny growth in that? And even just the ownership of, and they were like coloring in hearts and beautiful illustrations of what was going on. And Harry Potter was like a mini piece of it. I'm using it as an example because it's well known. But we read unbelievable things this year. Yes, okay.
So it kind of actually is a perfect segue. So I was going to ask about those conferences that you were having with students because I love doing conferences. So I was just wondering how often you were meeting with your kids and like the appointments, how long they were. Like I know, so they signed up for their appointments on their web. But how often you met with them and sort of what like one of those would look like, I guess.
So perfect. It's a great question. In the very beginning when I bit this off and I said I'm definitely going to conference with students, my principal was like, you have 50 kids. I have 25 in the morning. She said, it's going to be difficult. I don't want you to overwhelm yourself with this task. So pick 5 and meet with them once a week. But I felt like I could do this. I really was able to do this. So I ended up meeting with every single student at least twice a week. And I fit it into my lesson plans. And I had like, because I had everything in a blended learning station set, and I used Marzano's self-assessment, so everyone knew what they were working on. And then I have something called taking care of business time, which I learned from Daniel, actually, where there's a set period of time where they know what's due at the end of the week, and they are taking care of business, and they're working on their own to get what needs to be done. That's a chunk of time when I am free to be meeting. My meetings are 3 minutes, and it is, okay, where are you up to? Let me see your notebook. Let me see your book. Some kids like to post-it their books. So their books are full of all these post-it notes, and they like me to look at their progress in their post-it notes. So they'll bring me their book with their post-it notes and look, and I moved my post-it note this many pages, and that's all it really is. It's a check-in so that I know that they're reading, that they're growing, and then I'll give them a little quick thing to think about. Oh, what might happen if? I love those what might happen if questions because it gets them thinking deeper about the book. And it's not more than 3 minutes. And don't bite off more than you can chew. Start small. Starting small is the biggest piece of advice I can give every single person. Don't make yourself crazy. Start small. You'll see with a coach that as you start small, you can just get bigger and bigger. And by the end, I mean, in the beginning, I was freaking out. But I started small, and then it just grew from there. Yeah.
Question. Did you have any kids where you identified, oh man, this kid has a real reading disability?
Yes.
And how did you handle that within this structure?
So within this structure, I really couldn't handle it. But when I identified a reading disability, thankfully I have we have someone in our school where I could send an email. I have concern about so-and-so. I'm noticing a problem. And then my team came in and was able to observe, and they took it from there. I mean, then the parents were notified, and testing began, and he was taken for, on the side.
Special help reading. So he, okay.
Do you mind if I jump in there?
Sure.
I'm Roman.
Hi.
Funny story, I coached Sean
Yeah.
prior to Sean coaching Shira. So it's a funny thing. So one thing that I want to say about your question that I think people don't always realize is when we think about personalized learning, unfortunately, it's been a lot associated with technology because there are softwares and websites that have been able to invest that space, and for a lot of things it's good, right? To say, well, software can personalize to your students, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing that happens, for example, in Shira's case, I think you shouldn't stop me if I'm wrong, when students take more ownership of their learning, what happens is you end up having a lot less to do. And with that lot less to do, then some of these interventions become a lot easier. So I've never had as many one-on-one conversations with my kids until I started doing this, right? Because before that, I was always on the stage, leading everything, but then all of a sudden, I'm not. So then I can do more of that too. So I don't know if that helps giving a perspective on your questions. Go ahead.
I think the question really is the teacher will say, she's personality, behavior management, all that. She's able to do this. In her class of 18, she may have 4 that have not been, it's privately religious school, they're not getting the extra help. And those 4 have almost impossible to get them going. Because what they're able to read is embarrassing. And they won't pick the book that is within. They'll come in with a Harry Potter book. I love that example because I've seen it so many times. And they're like, Harry Potter.
Yep.
What's it about? Magic.
So in a system where we weren't focusing so much on personalization, let's approach the problem the other way around.
Yeah.
Let's think about the 14 others.
Okay.
In a system in which we approach it all together, I can't really push to where the 14 others are currently reading because I got my 4 there. And I think about them all the time, and I know that they're going to feel left out, singled out, all that, right? So it's where the challenge resided before, right? Where we want to kind of have that tension. So
you're saying if you could take care of the 14, you're saying you might have even a chance to breathe and deal with the 4.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens because the 14 are so well taken care of and they're on their own. They really know what needs to get done. They're taking care of business. They know when they need to read. They know when their conferences are. You can sit with those 4. I have sat in the library with those type of 4. It's not necessarily a disability or something that they need special services for. It may just be that they need one-on-one. And I have the time now to sit in my library and lay out 5 books and say, look, pick one of the 5, give me 2 days into this book. And sometimes I will read the first page with them and say, how about this? And my first question is, what do you love? What's your favorite thing to do? And I will find a book about that topic for them. I love hockey. I have 40 books on hockey in my classroom.
Two things that come to mind. Number one, I found read aloud to be a source of inspiration for the kids.
I
make sure to switch genres, and they begged me, so I did Magic Treehouse. Please do the second one, and then the third one, and I'm like, no, I want to try other books. I did give in eventually because they were really wanting, which was
Although
great.
if you read my audiobooks with that voice and accent, I would just play it all the
Me
time.
too.
And it's also that, they don't tell you that, but it's also that.
The parents tell me they come home singing.
Right.
The other thing is that one of the biggest things I say to parents at teacher conferences is don't force your child to read a book they're not interested in. So I remember my sister-in-law, my nephew, was not reading. She was panicking. I said, he likes sports. Pick up the sports page, let him read the sports page of the newspaper. It's still reading. Get them a magazine. We're so concerned our child should read Harry Potter. We forget that they can read anything. And reading is reading, right? So I always have to remind parents, like, let them read what they want to read.
We have graphic novels in our classroom now. Some of them only, okay, read a book, pick a book, let's go, it's reading. And that's the whole thing, just, we can't boss kids around. Do you want someone bossing you around all day long and telling you what to do? No, neither do they. They need to learn and they need to grow.
Thank you, I'm so sorry, but they're waiting outside, we gotta do the switch. Try to connect.